Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of FGI TV. I'm Jeff Bergerson, joined as always by my partner, Zach Turcott, and I am back this week, Zachary.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you again.
It's great to be back. We are with
exciting.
FantasyGolfInsider.com, and we're your home for DFS golf and all things fantasy golf. Moose filled in nicely for me last week. How'd it go?
Oh, we had a good time. He brought me a bottle of scotch. It's more than I got from you today. So.
If you haven't noticed, this is a very special edition, and we're drinking Gatorade today.
It's 7 a.m. in the morning. It's my favorite time of day.
This is when Zachary shines, is early morning. Yeah. This is the early morning edition of FGI TV. I just flew in late last night from vacation. Not very happy to be back in Minnesota because I came from 85 and sunny Zachary to 48 and rainy right now.
And the prices still aren't out, so that's exciting.
I could have waited a couple more days and DraftKings still wouldn't have their pricing out. But
that's exciting.
Yeah, it's glad to be back. I missed being on the show last week, but I did watch and Moose did a great job, and it was pretty cool. But happy to be back for the final week of fall golf.
Yeah, I know. It went by fast.
It flew by.
I'm just hoping it's still around in winter.
Yeah, I know. I think we're all hoping that. So, like I said, this is the last week of fall golf. But that doesn't mean you guys should stop thinking about golf or studying golf. I think it's a good time to look back at your tournament history, your cash game history. See if you can learn something from it. What did you do well? What did you do not so well? And improve your game.
It's going to be the same next fall again when guys are playing and coming along for the first time. For a lot of you, this was the first time you really got into doing it during the fall season.
Right.
So although the contests are small during this fall, they were even tinier last fall. From what I remember.
Oh yeah, they were minuscule.
When we did the $200 buy-in last fall, I think there were 55 players in it. So I mean, really about a third of the size that they are this year. So, think about that next year as you're going through who were the players that you could focus on that ended up doing really well, who were the guys that you kind of needed to stay away from, and then just think about what your bankroll management's going to look like next time around. I think a lot of folks just jumped into the fall season and then just kind of kept playing the way they had before. Mm-hmm. Things got a little bit more volatile in terms of guys making and missing the cut in some of these weaker fields, so it did get a little bit tricky. You have a couple of no-cut events in there. That always throws people off a bit as well. So, just think about it next year, kind of have a game plan when these same 6 events come along again next season.
Mm-hmm. Check out, we did a research study. Zach's working on it right now that we'll be putting on the site in December, based on all of the winning lineups for the GPPs on DraftKings, the $3, the $300. We look closely at what the winning rosters look like, what the roster composition was, to see if we can take something from it and learn. And we're going to put that on the website in December. We realize there aren't any tournaments in December, but we still want to give you value for your membership with us. Plus, we're going to grandfather you in if you keep being a member on our site. So don't do that. That's a no-brainer because our rates are going up in January. We're adding a lot of new tools. So that'd be cool. Zach's working on that right now. Anything else, Zachary, before we head into shots of the week?
Nothing yet.
You want to talk a little bit about last week's tournament? Now, I didn't see a lot of the live coverage. I was out of town.
Yeah.
I saw Graham McDowell won, which...
That was shocking, yeah. I mean, he's been playing better as of late. So coming in the event, a few people asked me, who'd you stay away from it? And initially I was thinking, well, McDowell's been one of those guys he was really disappointing for most of 2015. I don't think he had a top 10 finish all year. He missed a lot of cuts. But then as I looked at it and I started looking at the who's hot and how he had been doing in other tournaments, I started to think, well, he's probably actually going to be a decent contrarian play. There's, at his price tag up near the top, there weren't going to be a lot of people that actually owned him.
Right.
It wasn't a
5%.
It wasn't a particularly strong field. So if he did anything at all for his price, it was going to be a great tournament pick. I still wouldn't have been that excited to have plucked him out of the sky for a cash game just because he really has missed a lot of cuts.
Yeah.
But he played great. He roared to life there at the end. Jason Bone, I think a lot of us were on Jason Bone last week. He was such an obvious pick. I was glad that he did as much as he did, a second place finish. The guy is he's kind of like Furyk, I think, at this point. He's not able to get the win.
Yep.
So that was a little disappointing. I was surprised that Russell Knox was able to continue the momentum after being in China the week prior,
it's crazy.
Thought, this is probably a guy, and I think most of the field, he wasn't that highly.
He almost wasn't going to play.
Yeah, I would have thought this is probably a guy who you stay away from. He's probably going to be a little tired. He's not going to be that focused. He came back and he was really strong. You know, the winner of Sanderson Farms, Pete Malnati, continued to play really well. So yeah, I mean, it was a pretty good tournament. It went to a playoff, and unfortunately, the playoff finished up on Monday. So as a consequence, we don't have our prices yet. You know, it was rainy. I mean, pretty much rain has followed us wherever the tour has gone. I'm thinking China, okay, I guess this time of year is a little rainier, and then they get to Mexico, and I'm thinking, okay, sunshine, good weather. No, just
every day, right?
Days of rain and slop and mess. So, interesting event overall. I think the picks were kind of up and down. A lot of guys just cratered on Friday, which was amusing to watch, and which we'll kind of get to you in a minute. I was talking to a lot of people that were really excited about their lineups, and then person after person just hit a ridiculous landmine right near the end of the cut. So it was an entertaining tournament.
You wonder if the weather plays a factor in the mental component of that, bouncing back for the fourth round. I mean, I saw the scores. Guys were putting up +4, +5 out of nowhere, and it just didn't make sense.
Yeah. So the guys who made it through to the cut, you know, ended up doing reasonably well. There weren't a lot of real terrible rounds after the cut, but that Friday there was a lot of carnage. I'll just say that, a lot of carnage for guys.
So you want to do shots of the week?
All right, I'm ready.
All right, you got one, I got one. You got
we gotta send a shout out to Moose. After sitting over here last week, we asked him for a deep sleeper pick, and he gave us one with Darren Stiles, and through 33 holes, it looked like a genius pick. He was -5. He was cruising. He was hitting a ton of birdies, and I was just getting ready to send out kind of an early congratulatory tweet on, hey, you heard it from here first. Moosenomics sat in this seat. Mentioned a guy that I don't think most of the folks had even heard of before. So -5 with 3 holes to play. All he has to do is be -2 to make the cut. So he bogeys 16. Okay, no big deal. No. He's got 2 more holes left. He can go bogey. He's getting through. 17. He bogeys again. So now we're -3. That's okay though. We just got to bring it home. Just bogey the last hole. You're good to go. You're gonna cruise through this cut. It's still okay. You can rally back for the rest of the weekend. And then he tripled 18. I mean, just went from -5 to even in 3 holes. And missed the cut. I mean, it took a pretty special effort to do it, but Darren Stiles, you are my shot of the week. So here's to you.
This is actually alcohol, we will say. What are we drinking
7 a.m. We got this Cannonball.
Cannonball, Captain Morgan.
So it's a little tropical for you.
Wow. It's the first alcohol I've drank in a while without Malibu in it. So right there. Or an umbrella.
Yeah. Nice.
My shot of the week goes to Thomas Aiken. So I wasn't watching coverage. They, for some reason, didn't have the Golf Channel down there. But so I'm watching just the leaderboard and the updates and everything. Thomas Aiken started out the tournament with an ace on his first hole.
Awesome.
Hole in one. Then he goes birdie on holes 2 and 3. So instantaneously, he's -4. Awesome start for Thomas Aiken. So you might ask, how did he finish the round at +3 after that great start?
Very creatively.
Well, he put up 4 bogeys and a quad. Yeah. So that'll do it for you. And I highlighted his quad, which was in fact a 9-ball because it was on a par 5. And his tee shot actually went to the fairway, which is kind of unusual for a 9. Went to the fairway, shot 2 to native area, shot 3 to native area, shot 4 penalty drop, shot 5 native area.
He found
shot
it.
6 into the green side bunker. And then he goes up onto the green and then 2 putts for his 9. Nice job, Thomas Aiken.
Unbelievable.
9-ball.
Wow.
So Yep, that was another special effort, Zachary.
Yeah, it was interesting to see some of those guys. Pat Perez, you are another guy. You are an honorable mention.
Yeah, there you go.
Right before Styles pulled his special magic on the last 3 holes, Pat Perez, he lost 4 strokes over the last 5 holes to fall apart. So there were a couple guys who they really wanted to get out of Mexico. The weather wasn't quite up to snuff for Pat Perez. He's a party guy. He likes to have a good time.
Yep.
Weather wasn't that good. He wanted to get back on his plane, get out of town, get to some place where the weather was nice, and he did. So
at least the Mexican guys did well.
Yeah, the Mexican guys. Yeah. Wow. Yeah,
Carlos Ortiz, thank you very little.
Yeah. After 9th place finish last year, he comes back this year, and
he's been playing pretty well too. That was nuts.
Yeah, there were a lot of guys on Twitter who were feeling that choke around their neck as he went down at the end. So
Chris Stroud was another guy that put a knife in me too.
Brendan Steele. There were a lot of guys who had pretty decent histories, who had been playing reasonably well lately, who just absolutely didn't show up.
Who kills us most? I mean, obviously Paul Casey will always be the biggest, but I think Russell Knox and Brendan Steele have become 2 and 3 there for guys who just...
Yeah, we owned those guys a lot last year.
God, all the time.
Until they went into the make miss.
That's Steele. Mode. It's nuts this fall.
Yeah, and then with Russell Knox, when he forgot how to putt, and then he remembered this fall for a few weeks. So it's been interesting for guys that we followed really closely. And then Sean Steffany came back to life last week too. He was a guy that we just kept coming back to. Oh, he's good. He's going to come out of this rut. He's going to come out of this, and he's going to come out of this. And
Dude, every week I look at him. Every single week. And then I look at his current form, and I'm like, no, I cannot do it.
So bad. I mean, he was so bad at Sanderson Farms the previous week. Yep. And I know he had taken second at this tournament before.
But you know what? He fell and only ended like 25th or something.
Yeah, he did.
Bad.
It wasn't an amazing effort. But for the price, it worked out.
It would have been good. Yeah, but when he was up top, I was...
Yeah, the first the first day when he was 6 under.
Oh.
Looked great for a couple guys who I played heads up against, but... of course, they got what they deserved by making a risky pick like that, and he didn't end up being the guy who guided them.
He's not watching this show, don't worry.
That's fine. one of our favorites that I like to target every week.
So on to this week. Tour heads back to the United States, which is good. We're back.
Georgia. I guess.
Sea Island, Georgia. Formerly the McGladrey, so if you're looking back and trying to find where the hell the RSM Classic is, it was the McGladrey. We have it on the tournament history page on our site. It goes back to 2010, so you got a handful of years to look at. Like I said, it's played at Sea Island Golf Club. In the past, it's only been played on the Seaside course, though. And now this year, they're mixing in the Plantation course.
Awesome. Right?
Yeah. So the first 2 rounds will jump between those 2.
Can you imagine that in football? They're like, today we're going to play the first quarter at TCF Stadium. And then the rest of it we're going to play over here at the Dome.
Yeah.
It's the only sport that you have to deal with things like that.
Yep. Yardage is about 7,000 yards. The Seaside course is exactly 7,000. Plantation is right around there within 100 yards, par 70. Key stats we're looking at this week: strokes gained, tee to green as always, par 4 scoring, birdies are better. Strokes gained putting was one that jumped out. Some good putters have done well in this tournament over the last 5 years.
Players from Georgia,
which is about half the field, maybe.
It's a lot of the field. But they did do pretty well last year. So Brian Harmon took 41st. Hudson Swafford took 10th, I believe, and Russell Henley was 7th. And where did
Kisner? I think finished 4th.
Yeah, so it's been a pretty good spot for.
It has been. We'll identify some Georgia guys.
A couple of them.
I mean, not only Georgia Bulldogs, but also guys who live near Sea Island or St. Simons, which is right there as well. Come to mind like Matt Kuchar and Zach Johnson actually live, their neighbors in St. Simons. So they know the course well. I'm sure they play it all the time. So we can target those guys
as well. Hopefully Kuchar knocked off the rust after last week because he was...
I didn't think he was going to make the cut there for a little bit.
No, a lot of people didn't think so. But after a pretty sloppy first round, the second round he played much better in the second round to to get to.
But then his 4th round was a disaster, +5.
Yeah, it was not a real pretty weekend for him. So we were kind of glad that initially when he made the cut, I thought, he's gonna light it up this weekend. I'm gonna end up regretting not writing him up. But it worked out okay to.
Yeah, it worked out great to fade him
of our list.
Every single week this fall, it's worked to fade the top price guy.
Yeah.
So
pretty much, and
I'm gonna keep doing it.
He's been that much when they've been that much higher than the rest of the guys. And
yep.
Especially this week. This is another week where I think the top couple guys are probably going to be Matt Kuchar and Zach Johnson. And I don't know quite where DraftKings is going to.
Well, that's our game this week.
Oh,
our game is guess the price this week. You didn't know?
Yeah, the price is right. Awesome.
We're gonna guess the price for these guys, and you guys can let us know on Twitter how close we were.
I thought we were gonna play Plinko this morning, and we're playing the prices. Guess the price. All right. I'm with you. All right. So starting right at the top, then you think Zach Johnson's gonna lead us off?
I think Zach Johnson will be the highest price. You agree?
I would think him or Kuchar. It'll be pretty close on this one.
I think it'll be Zach Johnson. He'll be at about, I'll say 12,000, maybe 11,900.
I think 11,700 is kind of
11,700.
That's been the magic number where they've started at the last few weeks. I think one of them will be at 11,700 and the next guy will be at like 11,600 or 11,500.
Fair enough. All right. So we're pretty close there, but I actually think Justin Thomas will be 2nd or 3rd priced. I think he might actually be a little bit above Kuchar.
I think
although they'll be close.
I think based on just the rankings, he'll be number 3. I think he'll probably be somewhere around 10,500. That's my guess.
10,500 for who?
For Justin Thomas.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. I put 10,700. And then to round out my top 10, I got Kevin Kisner. I think he'll be about 10,000.
10,000. Patrick Rogers
he'll be about 10,000.
Right around 10. Yeah. Both of those guys could be between 10 and 10.3. Somewhere in that range.
Graham McDowell, I think, will be next. Russell Henley, Bill Haas, Brant Snedeker, and Robert Streb at probably 95.
Don't forget last year's winner there, Robert Streb. So he'll be up there as well.
95 to 97 ish.
Russell Henley, Charles Howell III. Those guys are around like 9,000.
Yep.
Somewhere in that range.
Who do you like out of that mess up there? Anybody?
To start with, I would think. Well, it depends on what the pricing ends up being. I think Kisner,
we know what it is.
We know what it's going to be, right? Yeah, we could. It really shouldn't be that hard.
No, it shouldn't. I guarantee we could be within a few $100s of every single player
every week. Sunday night, as you're watching the last NFL game of the week, they've already got the prices out. But I know they don't have the spreads or the totals out the night before. So just make an educated guess. There's no need to delay or hold back the prices. Even if they're wrong, it doesn't matter. The field will adjust to it. It'll become a part of the strategy anyway. So just put 150 prices out there, and we'll figure it out. So
we're available for consulting. We've offered our services multiple times.
At a very reasonable fee. Very reasonable fee. So I think if I'm starting at the top, I don't know if I really, from what I've seen here, Kuchar and Zach Johnson, for guys who have been down here a lot, this hasn't really been a course that they've lit up. So, and if they're 12,000 or near that range, I'll probably stay away. I probably would look for whoever that first guy is, right around that 10,000 mark. I don't want to pay 11,000 if I'm looking at a cash game play. So 10,000 sort of last week with Jason Bone, that was sort of my high water mark in terms of what I wanted to pay, that 10 to 10.5 range. So I think I probably would look at Kisner.
I love Kisner.
I think he would be a great pick to start the week. So Kisner would be one that I would look at there.
And my other guy up top. Rogers. Rogers is my guy.
He's had a fantastic fall.
God, is he good.
And he looks like you could see rounds last year where he looked like he was going to be a guy that was going to have breakthroughs. And he had a couple decent finishes last year, but it looks like consistency is happening this year. He's found his game. He's been really sharp through the first 4 events that he's played in the fall. So I would look for that.
I think he wins an event this year. What do you think?
I thought last week when I was asked, who's your one and done for the week? I said, in looking up and down at the numbers here, it was Patrick Rogers. I thought if last week was probably his best shot of the fall to win an event. So it won't be too long before he starts.
He'll eventually crack it. I mean, he's been in contention every tournament thus far this fall at some point. So. I love Patrick Rogers up top as well. We talked about putting being a key stat this week. Russell Henley's a terrific putter.
Yeah,
he's a Georgia guy.
A little bit of a weird fall, but I think you can probably overlook that for this event.
Very streaky, though. I mean, he's probably GPP play. Last year he was really consistent and made a lot of cuts, but in the past, maybe 6 events for him, he's been a little erratic.
But I think in a field like this, I probably won't have any real issue, especially if he's at a reasonable enough of a price. I think he's a guy that you could definitely be using in there as well. Justin Thomas, I think, is going to be a player who everybody will be on again.
Probably.
Everybody is a Justin Thomas fan from last year.
Yep.
So unless they price him at $12,000, I think he's probably in play. If you can get him at $10,000 or
I think it'll be 10-7.
So be on the high side of the 10s. So he might be about as much as you'd want to pay
10-6 maybe
in the cash game range. So he's another option that's out there as well. And then Robert Streb.
Yeah, I was just going to say Robert Streb.
Real curious on how he gets priced versus the rest of this field. And if he's the number 3 or 4 priced player this week, I'm probably not interested. If he falls to number 10 or so, I could be very interested. So it's just going to depend on where DraftKings algorithm starts throwing all these guys out.
He hasn't been playing well, though.
No, he really hasn't been that great.
I like Streb when he's down in the 7s and 8s, personally, in a stacked field.
Sure.
Where his price drops. When he's up toward, I think, what do you think he's going to be at this week? 95?
Yeah, he'll get a bump because he's the former winner here, and he's got a name in this event, so he's got to be above 9. I couldn't see him being below 9,500.
No.
So he's got to be probably between 9,500 and 10,000.
Right. And he's going to be a popular selection. He's always popular and defending champ.
Yeah.
But his form scares me a little bit.
Yeah, and so if you're looking at GPP play, he's probably a terrible GPP play.
Right.
I don't think I would really look at him for tournaments this week because a guy like him and Justin Thomas are probably going to be hovering in that 20-25%
I agree.
range. So might be a guy to avoid just because his form has been so miserable that he could be a guy who finishes, he could finish top 25, he could finish 55, he could even potentially miss a cut. If he has this one bad round like he has over the last couple months where he just starts off really slowly, then he could definitely be a guy who flakes out on you a little bit. So,
dropping down to the middle tier, who are some of your guys that you have highlighted or who you like at their price?
At their price for the week? Yep. Well, I mean, there's a couple guys I think you probably should end up staying with who've been really good as of late. I think Spencer Levine has been a guy who's been fantastic in the fall. He could be kind of a Robert Streb of the year, a guy who's been a little bit choppy and a little bit inconsistent, who just finds his game and takes off and starts making cuts. Not only making cuts, but being competitive for top 10 finishes week in and week out. And his game, since we saw him play in the fall, or since we saw him play in September, has been just really consistent. Yep. So he is definitely a guy that I like down in that range. I think another guy that I would take a look at this week is another Georgia guy, Hudson Swafford. Mm-hmm. He did really well here last year. He took 10th. He's usually burned me in particular when I picked him. I've only picked him 2 or 3 times since summer, but each of those times those were the only times I think really when he's missed the cut. But he's a Georgia guy. Took 10th at this course last year. His price might be a little bit higher. Usually you see Hudson right around the 7 range, maybe 6,800 range. I think he was 73 last week. He could, with the success he's had over the last last 3 or 4 months, combined with how he did here last year, he could be a guy who starts to get up to that 7,800 range this week. But I think he's a good guy that you're going to be able to use to have some success with for a lot of your teams. So that's another guy that I like. Who are a couple of the guys that you're looking at?
Well, one of the themes that I've stuck with throughout the fall is sticking with the guys off the web.com tour who are hungry, who want to accumulate points in the fall, and making cuts is really, really important to them. Yeah. So I've stuck to that, and it's worked. So I'm going to continue that this week. A few of the names, you mentioned Levine. He's one of them. He's a guy who's been grinding, making every cut. Smiley Kaufman has made every cut. He's hungry. Patton Kazire, although last week I didn't because of his price was too high.
Is that coming down this week? Is he going to be... I think he's still probably going to be at least in the mid-9 range. Isn't he?
I think so. I think 9,400. So he'll come down a bit, especially with the field becoming more talented. So he becomes back in play again. So I like him this week. Another guy is Roberto Castro, who's been playing real well. He's going to be probably in the $8,000 range, 8,300, something like that.
He's got Georgia ties as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Jason Kokrak's another guy who I've been on the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's somebody asked, how are you guys on Kokrak last week? And it was really kind of a simple thing. You just looked at, you're looking for small turns in a guy's game. So he had decent course history there. He'd taken 16th, I think, the year prior. And you know the guy has a pretty good skill set. I mean, his statistics look really, really pretty solid if you just looked at that and didn't look at the heart-wrenching tournament results on a few events. So he really burned a few people badly.
Oh, yeah.
Two or three
events
in a row where it was just one after another after another after being really consistent.
Yep.
So sometimes you're just looking for a small turn in a player's game where, so he had a good last one or two events. He's been good here before. We're still catching him on the upswing a little bit before the rest of the crowd gets there, and that's why you play a guy like that in a GPP type of event as opposed to with cash. So
he was owned by a very small percentage again last week in the $3. So I love him as a GPP player as well, and cash. I think he's legit cash too.
Yeah, potentially, because you're going to need to find a few of those guys. All those top guys we named, they're going to more than likely be in that 9,000 to 12,000 range. So we're going to need to find a few of these guys like Swafford. Even Levine, I think this week he was like 7,800 or so. Last week he's going to be he's got to go mid 8,000s, I would think, or low 8,000s. So you're going to have to find a few of these guys to kind of balance out those studs you take at the top. So
I want your take on the phenomenon of Alex Cheka. Would you explain to me why?
I don't know. He's been a crowd favorite.
A crowd favorite. It's unbelievable. He's not even any good.
Yeah, this isn't like a young player.
No.
This is an aging veteran, a guy who's been around for years and years. And again, last week he had huge ownership. I actually thought last week would be.
He was 24. What was he last week? 24% owned in the $3. That's a huge number.
Yeah, I mean,
for a guy in the 7,000 range.
Yeah, and I thought he'd do well last week. He had been playing well. He had taken 16th. There the year before, so I wrote him up.
So naturally he didn't play well,
right? Yeah, so he really didn't show up for us last week.
It just blows my mind that a random like Alex Cheka can be owned by a quarter of the field in such a diverse field like the $3, because he was owned by 27% in what event was it?
Yeah, it was 2 weeks prior.
Oh no, CIMB
Malaysia.
was 20. Yeah, there.
Yeah, when I looked at that, I thought this has got to be a mistake. How is Alex Cheka owned by 23% of the field here? This is bananas.
Yep.
This is crazy.
And he played well that week.
So I'm curious to see, are people going to be off the bandwagon? I think they will be this week.
I don't know.
If you look at his tournament history here, it's not that spectacular. I mean, he hasn't really had the results here. And now he's coming off of he burned a good quarter of the field last week. So I think people will probably jump off of him. So if you're looking for an interesting contrarian play, he might be one now, because there won't be 23-24% after he crushed the field the way that he did last week. So yeah, he was a guy that I looked at and then just thought, this is we're getting into some precarious territory here with this guy, because he is a make a couple, miss a couple.
What a wonderful fade though in GPPs if a quarter of the field is going to own him.
Yeah, well, yeah. Oh. If you did that last week, then yeah, it was a good start. If you could just have avoided every other landmine along the way, so that was he's been one that's been kind of fun to watch. Another guy who cut our throats a little bit last week as well was Ben Crane. I was pretty excited after day one when he was -4. It looked like he was picking up right where he left off from the other 3 events. So he started out, he's -4, he's looking great. And even the beginning of the round, he wasn't in that bad of shape. And then he just completely fell apart, lost 4 shots, ended up missing the cut. I think he finished even par for the 2 days that he was able to play. So he's another guy where I look at him this week and I think it's really just one bad round so far. One bad round out of the 14 rounds or so that he's played. He just decided to DQ himself on the one, which is bizarre, which I don't think it happens again. And then he had one bad round last Friday. So he's another guy where I think the form is still there. You're not going to use him for cash games, obviously, but I think you could still mix a guy like that into your GPPs.
Okay.
He's not going to go up in price, so I still would think that he'd probably be around that $6,600 to $6,900 price range if you're looking for a lower guy who has a little bit of potential there.
Another couple guys, deep sleeper type guys. We both mentioned Sean O'Hare would be a decent play. He's played okay here, and I think he will be about 6,800, 6,900, maybe 7,000.
He could be in the mid sevens.
You think he'll be 7? I don't know. I would say 7,000. Ches Reavie makes cuts, never finishes all that impressively, but he makes cuts.
Just barely eked across for us last week, so that was nice.
That was good. Lucas Glover is another guy that I kind of like this week as a deep sleeper. Some upside there. Georgia ties, obviously.
And you said putting was a necessary skill?
Not necessary, beneficial.
Okay, good. Okay, just checking.
Maybe he'll drink the water that Russell Knox has been drinking, and all of a sudden.
Right, yeah.
Jonathan Bird's another one that I like, who will probably be somewhere in the mid sixes too, that I think could surprise in GPPs. Anyone else that you like down below in sleeper mode?
Looking down there's a couple guys. I think Chad Campbell, he had a little bit of an off week last week, but he's played pretty well here in the past. And Zach Blair is playing really well right now, and courses that play a little shorter are more his style. So I think Zach Blair, he won't be quite as cheap as he was the last couple of weeks, but he's another guy that you can use down there near the bottom, probably to make a cut. Maybe top 30-ish kind of range for a guy like that. I wouldn't get your hopes up too high, but he's a decent player for this time of year and for some of the courses that they're at. Mm-hmm. So,
cool. Well, check out our articles. We'll have some more sleepers for you.
Especially once the prices come out in about
then we'll have an idea.
6 hours or so at some point during the day. So.
Yeah, it's very difficult to get all our stuff up in time for you guys when the prices are out so late. So thanks for your patience. We do our best. As soon as they come out, we're crushing ourselves to get it on the site. So we're doing our best. Another thing about the site, a lot of you have been asking, is about our gear. We're going to have the online shop up in December. The web guys have been slow motion with things, so that should...
Nothing new there, right?
So in December, that will hit, so check it out. Zachary's got one on, I got a hoodie on, but we got tons of cool stuff. It's good, high-quality stuff, and we're not even marking it up. We're not making any money on it. We're just paying for the gear, basically, and the taxes and the web... hosting of the store and everything. So we just want you to wear the gear, and if you like it, go ahead and grab some.
Take pictures, tweet them out.
Yeah, right.
That's what we want.
Check us out, fantasygolfinsider.com. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Check us out on Twitter. Zach's doing Periscope for...
Wednesday, 9 p.m., so at normal time.
There you go.
Yep.
All right. Anything else to add, Zachary?
No, that's it. Hey, make it a great day.
Yep. Make it a great
Fucking
day.
hate people who say that to me.
So we got a few weeks off, and then we'll be back for the Hyundai Tournament of Champions in January. So hopefully, that time will go by fast. And
see what happens within the industry over these next 6 weeks.
Hopefully we're still here. So take care, guys. Good luck this week.
All right. Goodbye.